Welcome to Systemize Your Success. And today I'm joined by Mike Verret. Now, this is an interview which has taken us a couple of months or so to actually get sorted, but one I'm really, really excited about. And you will be too when you find out what Mike does. Now, Mike basically helps us business owners to tell people or help us tell people in the world how we do what we do in a way that truly resonates with them and makes them want to do business with us. That is the kind of thing that I need in my business so much. That's why I'm so excited about speaking with Mike today. And I'm sure this is going to be an absolutely fantastic interview. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success. So welcome, Mike.
Steve, it is an absolute pleasure to finally connect the two continents and get this on the books. It's good to see you and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Fantastic. So I like to kick off the interviews by just say, look, just give us a couple of minutes, a few minutes in your own words, who it is that you help, how do you help them, and what is it you want to share with the world?
So it all starts with the fundamental understanding that we need to talk about our business to get people to engage. And we think 100% everything about our business, everything's important. But the truth is only 5% matters to our audience. And finding that 5% when you know everything is extremely difficult. Think of a famous author like Stephen King, writes a new book, 400 pages, next bestseller. The hardest part of the book for him to write is the 3 paragraphs on the inside flap that sell the book. Reason being, he knows everything. He just wrote 400 pages and every word has meaning to him. When it comes time to distilling that down to something that's going to connect with the audience, engage them, and get them to want to read the book, he just can't do it. His solution is simple. He gives the book to someone else to read. They read it and see it through that audience's 5% point of view. And they're able to distill those 3 paragraphs based on reading the book. The author couldn't do that because the author's too involved. That's what happens to every business. We want to talk about our services and benefits because we built a solution for our audience. The challenge is the audience reacts to one of 3 things. To them, you need to be first, best, or different. And first and best, arguably very hard to come by, but different is where I focus. And my job is simply to show a business what the audience sees and create one clear way to communicate it. We talk about it as your pitch, your elevator pitch, the answer to the question, what do you do? So I effectively help people answer that question in a way that connects with their audience and gets them to act.
Fantastic. I mean, this is something that I've dabbled with for many years. You can't be a business owner and I've not heard the word you need an elevator pitch. And if you're, anyone listening to this has probably read half the books that I've read that all, and about marketing, I should say, that all talk about this and try to make it sound easy to come up with your own elevator pitch. And you just need to do this. You just need a few, but it's so hard. And every time I've done it, it ends up being about 3 times as long as it should be, or like you just said, feature packed, and yep. All the bells and whistles. And I think I'm getting slightly better at it over the years, and I've had enough training and coaching I should be better at it. But it's still, I find it incredibly difficult. So how do you, go about helping someone? I mean, you've given it a really good analogy there with the Stephen King analogy, which I thought was actually a very, very nice way of putting it. But say me, for example, say if I'm going to be I'm a potential client, I genuinely would be a potential client, or I'm a potential client of yours because of what I do with Sage Amount in business and what you do as a service. It's a good match. So sell it to me. Why? How do I work with you? And what benefits would I get, and how does the process work, and what sort of tips you can give people who are listening to this to help them along the journey?
All right. First thing to understand is any audience thinks in a narrative. They think in a story. What happens? What happens next? What happens next? What came after that? There's none of us in the world that don't think like that. That's how the human brain works. Where the interruption occurs, think of that as a story, right? Pages of a book. Where the interruption occurs is the business does not think that way. I tell people there's no business without show business. No matter what business you're in, you're playing a role, you're reading from a script, there are directors, there are producers, but we don't think the way we do in the regular world. And what I mean by that is even the language, Steve, the language we use in business, things like synergize and ideate and e-commerce. We don't say, did you use an e-commerce platform to buy that shirt? We said, did you get that online? We don't say ideate, we say think. If you and I were just old friends, we went out for a pint and I said, oh, I got to get going. I got my son's basketball game tomorrow. What are your KPIs this weekend? I'd say, what are you doing this weekend? I wouldn't talk about key performance indicators. All of that is built in a way that creates a vacuum for that business where they're thinking, acting, and moving forward in that mindset. Where they have trouble is translating what they have to the outside. So think about this idea. If you engage in, if you need a plumber, all right, and you go on Google, plumber near me, you're going to see a bunch of results. The first 3 results you click on effectively say, you need a plumber, we're a plumber, here's our number, get in touch. The 4th result says, if water's leaking, don't call us. Click this red button, we'll be there in 15 minutes. That plumber knows why you're looking for a plumber. It's not your need state, I need a plumber. That's what the other 3 are responding to, right? They all look the same. This plumber knows why. Water doesn't wait. If you come home and there's water on the floor, time stands still. If it's a shingle or a light bulb, you could change it on Saturday. But this is very different. And that plumber knows that. That plumber is speaking to your motivation, not your need state. And that forms a connection with you. That's what different looks like. Different feels like anytime you've ever scrolled social media and your thumb stops on something, ask yourself why. Something you're looking for, something caught your attention and stood out as different. That's the first step to connecting with an audience. But what we jump to is, you need a plumber, we're a plumber, because we know we have all the tools to fix the plumbing and we know how it works. So I've built a simple process that effectively is understanding pages of that story and the order they have to appear to your audience. Your audience needs to be intrigued. You need to connect with them first. That's page 1. Let's say your services are on page 5. You can't jump in on page 5 and expect them to understand without 1, 2, 3, and 4. Connect, get their attention, create intrigue, relate. This is why you're here. We know what you're going through. This is what you're experiencing. Solve it in a sentence on page 3. Give them a simple way to understand, yes, I want to keep going. They got my attention, they related to what I'm going through and showed me a solution. Then show them how the solution works. A process on page 4. 3 steps beginning to end of how you work with a customer or your audience. Then services on page 5 have remarkable context and they understand exactly what it means. After that, 6 is benefits, 7 is validation, prove it works, case studies, testimonials. 8 is call to action. What do you want them to do next? The way it works is you're answering questions the way a human being would ask them. So what do you do? Oh, interesting. Tell me more. What do you mean by that? Okay, so how do you help those people? Well, how does that solution work? What do they get in that process? What happens to them? How are they better off now than they were before? What can they do now? Can you prove it works? You know what? Yeah, let's set up a second meeting. I've covered every base in the order they need to hear it. And that's what it takes to build that pitch. It doesn't matter how good your service or product is in reality. It's about audience perception. They could pass right by you because they don't connect with what you're saying first, and you never get their attention. So that perception determines the value you have. And telling that story in the right order is what gets them to act.
Fantastic. I love that. And as I said, I've been thinking about this and read about this for many years, and I love that very structured approach. That makes sense. It just makes sense because it's the natural way we think about stuff.
Exactly. That's what we all strive in business when it comes to, say, brand foundation or building a brand. What do we stand for? What are our values? What is our persona? That kind of stuff, right? And none of that matters if it doesn't connect with the outside world. I'll use an example for you. In the United States, auto insurance is a ridiculously competitive environment. And you've got these companies that started out, you could tell they picked their archetype, right? Like who they want to represent from a storytelling perspective. And you had Allstate, the good hands people, the nurturers, and you had Liberty Mutual Insurance, these tight banker collars and tight Windsor knots, and serious as a heart attack. Then along comes this company, Geico Insurance. And Geico figured out a way to get out of the whole, you need to go through all these steps, and get it down to 15 minutes or less, can save you money, and you do it all online, effectively setting a new standard for what everybody else in the industry had to do. But Geico came in as the jester. It's so easy a caveman can do it. If you were to look up their advertising, it's really, really funny, humorous, just like, we all need this, get it done in 15 minutes. Fast forward now, there's not one auto insurer in the United States that doesn't use humor as the connection point. Liberty Mutual, banker collar, Windsor knot, they now feature Limu, Emu, and Doug. An emu and this guy who drive around in a car and save people money on their car insurance. It is 100% based on what the audience was seeing. I don't want to deal with this. 15 minutes, make it cheeky. It'll be fun. It'll be better. Everybody gravitated to that because of the audience's perception. That's what it comes down to. If you can't see the world through the audience's lens and understand how they think, it doesn't matter what your service is. That's the issue that everybody runs into, because what we know best is the product or service we built. That's why we created our business. That's why we're in business. So being able to articulate on that 5% level becomes really, really difficult. They need to know this. I want to make sure they know this. That's us projecting what we think they need to know. And it just creates a cloud around the business. Incredibly easy to do when it's not your business. But when it's yours, you go through months of trying to figure it out and testing and figure it. My tagline 18 months ago said, "Don't pay overhead, call Mike instead." I sounded like a personal injury attorney, selling services. What I was thinking is, I'm going to save them money over. I work directly in a business, not I'm an agency on the outside. I'll save them money. Somebody had to thump me upside the head and say, look, that's not what you do. She interviewed me, interviewed 2 clients, and rewrote my website. And it's what I say today about what I do. I couldn't do it myself. It's because of all the detail, because of our internal perspective and what we think they're going to see or need to see, that clouds the waters.
Yeah, totally. And many businesses similar to mine, I'm sure. And I built my business on the back of solving the problems I had and overcoming some sort of challenge. And mine are actually business related challenges, but many businesses are just from solving other challenges in life. And when your challenge you overcome, what I've managed to do is to kid myself that, well, of course I know how to talk about it, because it's the challenge that I had. And I just talk about it and talk about it in the pain points that I had. And what you forget is, and I know, because I've tried to do this, and I've tried to get help to do this as well, but not in this sort of way. I mean, when I say that, I've been reading books and all the rest of it.
Yeah, you tried to educate yourself on how to do it. Of course.
Yeah, but I've been literally thinking about systems, about delegation, about management, about virtual assistants, about apps, technology. That's all I have thought about for 6 or 7 years now. And so my world of this is so skewed, is so heavily leaning into what, like, I've almost forgotten what reality is like on the outside, you know, because this is all I think about. And I'm you know, I absolutely love what I do. So I've you know, I'm very lucky. I've managed to create a job I love, you know, and it doesn't feel like work to me. It's play. But that means that literally I know that I am sort of stuck in this reality, which
Well, I'll give you an analogy that is what we all go through in that case. When we know everything, we want to explain everything because we want it to be part of showing that expertise, right? So it's very similar. What happens to all of us is asking a watchmaker what time it is. We want to know what time it is. The watchmaker is going to tell us how the watch works. That's what we all run into. And that's probably what you've run into as well. You got to think of it this way. The work you do, the service you provide, it needs an architecture around it. But what it's really doing is creating a 24/7 to-do list. You need to market, you need to sell, you need to do the work, you need an accountant, you need this, you need that. I need to write content, I need to post on LinkedIn, I need to send out. All of that is looked at as tasks being checked off. It's like plugging holes in a dam instead of building a new dam. Make sense? Like you spend all your time checking things off, but more are coming on. So how can you possibly look at the whole thing yourself? That's the challenge that everybody runs into. And that's exactly what I run into, what you run into. Let's try this though. What do you usually say now? Like, where have you gotten
to? So I guess there's a couple of ways I talk about my business, but one of them is talking from a point of view, my mission statement. So when people ask what I do, I say, well, you know how businesses typically fail. Like most businesses, 75% of businesses fail within the first few years. And a big reason for that is because business owners get stressed, overwhelmed, and they fail to delegate, and they basically end up throwing in the towel. Well, we help small business owners to offload their work through using systems and through using cost-effective remote teams, so they can thrive and survive in a world where most businesses fail.
Perfect. So in this instance, we're talking about somebody who has a great idea or a service or product, something they know how to do well, but they have no idea. They've never run a business before, right? So your whole position on it is to build the business around, like the business support around them. But what they're going through is akin to a storm. They're just trying to maintain the right direction and ride out the storm. That's what it feels like every day. Go back to that to-do list I just mentioned. And they have to learn how to do it. So when they get stuck, when they get to that point where they go out of business, it's because they're just overwhelmed by all of it. They feel like every day is almost standing still. So how do you get them to understand that the key to doing what you do best is creating the right structure around it? So the first thing that I want to hear, if I know what I do best, but I'm really struggling to gain revenue, run the business part of it, I want to hear that what Steve does is effectively takes the weight of the business off my shoulders so I can do what I do best. And how you do that, your solution, that's the connection point. Your solution is building that architecture. Your solution is creating that, you know, how you would explain it, but it's that buoy, you know, support your business with the right buoys, right? Like with the right things to hold it up in the water. That's what's lacking. They feel like they're sinking. What you're doing is giving them buoyancy. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I like it. Easy, right?
But their first
send
point,
me a bill.
why they're looking is the important part, right? Not what they need. Why they're looking for it is the important point that we're addressing here. They feel overwhelmed by the business that's required to do what they want to do and know how to do.
Yeah.
And that creates this weight, that pressure all the time of, I need to move forward. I need to do this. I need to do that, but I don't know how. It creates that oppressive, like, stress weight. It becomes overwhelming.
Yeah,
That's what you're
totally.
solving for.
Fantastic. Okay. Give me some food for thought. So just, I was thinking as you were talking then, you mentioned your website and you mentioned this, the process, the multi-step process you've got to creating this story about business about. And so what and in the beginning of this conversation, just to put this into context, we talked about the elevator pitch. But it sounds like actually the structure that you're talking about, the narrative or the way that we talk about our business, it's used for much more than, when you're in a networking event and you're going up to somebody saying, what do you do? By the sounds of it, this is actually what we need to be using. This diet list, trying to think of the word. What we're talking about here is actually what we're going to use for our website. It's got what we're going to use for our brochure. It's got what we're going to use for. Is that right? So is that basically we're going to fit this in any time we talk about our business?
You are absolutely right. The question, what do you do, is not something that just comes up in networking from an audience. That's what they're thinking when they are looking for a service. What does this one do? What is this guy all about? They're always asking that question. And you have a few areas where you can tell your full narrative, your audience narrative. One of them is an elevator pitch. That could occur in networking or, somebody in a meeting, whatever. But that exact same response, that order of information, should appear in your LinkedIn profile too. That's a 24/7 networking event. So why wouldn't you want it to be the same? And your homepage, that's where people are going to go to first on your website, but it's also a key place to tell your whole story. Another place is your new business presentation. The first 8 slides of your new business presentation should tell the same story. So in actuality, you're figuring out a lot by nailing down that narrative about what you do in a way that the audience connects to and follows along with. They're not just talking to you face to face asking that question. It's LinkedIn. It's sitting in the audience listening to your pitch, your new business presentation. It's when they go to your homepage. So having that uniformity and consistency, that order of information, should be the same anytime you can tell your whole story. Advertising, PR, marketing things, those are all little pieces to drive to that full story. Visit us online, come into the store. That's what we're trying to do, get them to our full story. So if that full story is effective and consistent, you see a better result.
Cool. I like this. All right. So I'm interested. I'm going to ask this question in case anyone else is thinking it as well. But what you do as a business, is it just to help people create, like you said, the sort of elevator pitch stuff, or does it go beyond that? Like, could I say employ you to write the copy for my website in its entirety? I mean, where does the scope of what you?
Where do I draw the line?
Yeah. Or is there no line?
The important distinction to make is what I'm doing is translating what a business does into audience language, right? And the baseline for that is this elevator pitch. I've created a product called the Elevator Pitch Construction Guide. It's a workbook. And I use it. I don't just send it to people. I use it as the device to work with my clients, where we meet for an hour. Then I write the book. I fill it all in. And it's each floor of my elevator, right? My elevator structure is represented by a page, and it all comes together at the end in one view that you could just read through on a networking pitch. And I turn that in, I send that to them in 2 days after we meet. And then we meet again to adjust and align after they've had a chance to digest it and run it by people, that kind of thing. But the way I see it is, if I could get somebody in, say, a week and a half to a position where they can answer that question, then they can go off and build their website and create their LinkedIn page. Like, all of that stems from, this is as far upstream as you get. What do you do? So I created a simple mechanic to do that. I also work with businesses on longer term to create what we call their audience blueprint. It goes a lot deeper. It's how to adapt it to your website, and it's and how to adapt it into your new business pitch. And the last part of what I do is when it comes time to present it, it can be a living nightmare. So I do offer presentation skills, and I usually work with businesses, say, I'll work with 10 of their employees for 2 hours. And when they come out of it, they come in with something they need to communicate. And when they come out, it's far clearer for their audience and they get to where they need to go. So those are the 3 things that I focus on, is that answering that question, what do you do? Expanding it across your business where it needs to go. And then when the time comes to talk to people about it, how are you going to get the reaction or the action that you need?
Cool. I like that. Okay. Mike, we're gonna have to draw this to a close very, very soon. Sadly, but I often say this, but I genuinely mean it. Like, literally, I could talk to you for hours about this, because it is something that is so close to my heart. It's something I really struggle with. And partly because of my closeness to the business, but partly I think because I don't generally find writing copy the easiest thing. It takes me a long time. I think I can do it after I really sit down and think about it and spend hours on it and tweak it. I haven't got time to do that. And so,
well, think about this, Steve. Do you remember writing, say, like a research paper in school at some point, where they would teach you to use index cards or something, like capture the idea you want to explain and put those in order? Then you're writing around those ideas, right? What I create allows you to write around the ideas, as long as the order and the sentiment, what you need to communicate, stays true. You can expand it, you can shrink it. It doesn't have to be one length. Do you know what a slinky is? The toy slinky? It comes in a box completely contracted, but it stretches out to meters and meters. But a slinky stops working when you tangle the coils. Exactly the same thing as your brand narrative. It has to remain in order. Why would you change the order of pages of a book you wrote? That's the bottom line. So, but it allows for incredible flexibility. You can take one idea and expand on it for like one floor of the elevator and expand on it for 15 minutes if you want to. But as long as the story is in the right order, they're always going to follow along the right way. And that's the biggest challenge, as far as I'm concerned, for any business, is how do you keep the audience on? You got to picture them as a bunch of 5-year-olds, 10 5-year-olds sitting on a rug listening to somebody read a story. I'm going to turn that book around and show them the pictures because they're 5. But what I'm looking for is they see and understand page 3. All 10 of them are going, yeah, before I go to page 4. It's that basic. It's that way of thinking that clears up the page.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Mike, I have a few questions that I like to ask people before they leave.
I can't wait.
I'm not sure if you've seen these before, but if not, they're not very difficult. I'm sure you'll be fine.
I'll see if I can hold on.
Yeah. First off, can you give me 2 or 3 apps, pieces of software, technology tools that you like, love, and couldn't live without?
The first one is LinkedIn, because it's a 24/7 networking event. It's communication. It's communication. It's conversation. It forms connections. I mean, that's a great tool. I know it's not an app. I mean, everybody's on LinkedIn, but understanding the power of LinkedIn is what's important. And, I've gained 3,000 followers in 6 months just by creating content that is of value to my audience. They come back for more. That's the way it works. The most valuable app that I use is Calendly. Reason being, I can explain an entire product on like what somebody's going to get. I can use Calendly as a marketing tool. I could use it as a CRM. I understand. I'm getting all the information of who's coming in, what they want to talk about, how they heard about me. I'm getting all of that from Calendly. My goal is to drive people to that link, because I know for me that networking, I'm using that as a bucket, on camera or on the phone meeting someone. I know I can be influential, so I should be trying to get people to there. And the last thing that I do is not an app at all. It's taking opportunities like this. If I have the chance to amplify and spread my message by being a guest on other people's programs, it's phenomenal. But from a technology standpoint, LinkedIn and Calendly are what I swear by. I've dabbled with others, but those are the two that I constantly, 90% of the day, I know I'm using those two tools.
Cool.
That's because it's me. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't want to jump on camera with someone. So why would they be relying on Calendly the way that I do? But I have found it to be an invaluable part of the business.
No, I'm totally with you on that one. And LinkedIn is one of those things that I've sort of put off for many, many years to actually get my head into properly, sitting on Facebook and whatever. But towards the back end of last year, in about September, October, we made it was the last quarter of last year, actually. We made a decided business decision to really focus on it. So we've done quite a lot of groundwork. We've got the things starting off, and then this year for me is my year of LinkedIn, really, from a marketing perspective. So
and LinkedIn is unique in social platforms in that people go there for one reason. Think about how many reasons people go to Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, then compare it to LinkedIn. One reason.
Yeah,
network.
Very good point. Never thought of that before, actually. Yeah. But it's so obvious.
That's why I don't waste any time on other social platforms, because what the hell's the point? If I'm selling to a consumer, it starts to make sense, but then I'm under a lot of competitive pressure and just mind share, because everybody's on there for so many reasons.
The reason I just on a bit of a side, but the reason I actually have continued to publish onto Facebook, because I started out on Facebook group 6 or 7 years ago, and that's where all my original business came from.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a huge drop in engagement on Facebook from business owners. And a lot of my clients, when I say, I've got a Facebook group, you can connect it. I don't want to. I don't really use Facebook anymore. And that seems more and more common. They're happy with WhatsApp. They're happy with a private group off Facebook, but they don't, And so I think, but it still has its place in that what I've continued to use it for, and actually have grown, started using Instagram, started using TikTok, is simply to keep on putting messaging out, and we do short clips for our podcast. It's because it just getting into the front of mind of people, just because they're on it, and then I pop up.
And you've been on it for 6 or 7 years, so you've built an expectation over that time, right?
I guess that too.
A tribe of followers, if you will. When I started on LinkedIn 3 years ago, what I had, I knew was B2B. There was no reason for me to be on the other ones.
No.
But you already had something established. That's different.
Yeah. No, good point. Anyway, just aside. Cool. Who else do you think would be a great guest on this podcast that you could possibly connect me to?
I don't know if you've met a gentleman by the name of Paul Banks.
No, I haven't.
He is located in the UK, and he is one of the greatest connectors I've ever met. He just understands the networking heartbeat, if you will. And he would be a fantastic guest on your program, I think. Because a big challenge, if you think about the types of businesses that you and I talk to, say, under 50 employees, but I mean, realistically, we're talking a lot that are 1 to 20, maybe. The leader of that business is the C-suite, right? There are a lot of things that they have to be thinking about. And one of the things that every small business knows is they're not spending a ton of money on scale marketing, meaning mass media. They're relying on building relationships. Paul is the best at building relationships. He's absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend it.
Fantastic. If you could connect me, that would be fantastic. Or just let me know and I'll reach out to him. But yeah, sounds like a very, very
I'll even connect you guys on LinkedIn.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Fantastic. So the title of this podcast, as you may know, is Systemize Your Success. But what does success mean to you?
God, there are so many different ways to measure it, right? Like, people will measure it by he who has the most toys wins, or they want to climb the corporate ladder. I have a really, I sit in a basement all day. Like, behind this door is the furnace, the boiler. My expectation of success is I can build a business that's consistent. I'm constantly doing what I'm best at, and my customers, my clients get the result they want. After that, small house near the water in town somewhere is like, and a warm place to go in the winter is pretty much my expectation of success. So I think success for me really has to do with, over my 20 years in business, I found the thing that I do best. Understanding an audience is what it is. I know how an audience thinks, how to connect to them, how to explain in their order what they need to know and get them to act. If I can keep doing that, that's, to me, as successful as I can be.
Cool. I like it. And finally, do you believe you can systemize your success? Yes or no, and why?
Systemize success.
Systemize your success. The name of the podcast.
All right, you're going to hate me for saying this, but
say what you feel.
I equate system with rigidity. And part of the challenge that every business has is humans don't run on a system. We don't have standard operating procedure. You can't program this, right? We think we have free will. You're going to get a different opinion from me if I'm in a bad mood versus a good mood, right? All of those things are unpredictable. How somebody's going to respond is very unpredictable. So what I see it as is, you could create an approach, you could create an architecture, but a system sounds like it's inflexible. You need flexibility built in, because you can't predict a question that's going to come up with it if you're talking about your business. So systematizing success, I think, is the right way to look at it. You need a path with solid stepping stones that gets you to where you want to go. But there is no secret system that gets you to go from here to here in one straight line. And I think that's distinctly human. So don't tie yourself into the systematize. Means have a way of approaching things. It doesn't mean it's black or white. You need to have that flexibility. You don't know what's around the next bend.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today. I've learned
Steve,
a lot.
thank you for the patience and bringing this all together. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So much fun to talk with you.
And I genuinely believe this would be of interest to many, many people that listen to this. And if they do want to find out more about you, or not find out more about you, but connect with you and yeah, find out more about you. There you go. How can they do that? What's the best place? I'm guessing
Easiest thing to do.
Yep.
Look for me on LinkedIn, Mike Verret, Verret, and you'll see it says elevate your pitch. You can't miss me.
Fantastic.
You'll see the butterfly. You'll see me with my thumb up like this. Really familiar.
They've got a nice butterfly logo, which you need to see. It's very beautiful.
Of course.
We'll also, as always, put all of your links that you've asked me to in our show notes. So anyone who wants to connect directly through that Calendly link, as we talked about before, then you can do that directly from our show notes page. Cool.
Fantastic. Yeah, the butterfly is meant to represent perspective. When it's your business, you feel like you're just in the weeds always. And if you could see it, if somebody could show you the right way to go, if they can see everything and show you the right way to go, it's a much easier journey. So that's sort of what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Thanks very much.
Absolutely.